He missed my wedding. I don't mean he sat in the back row or showed up late. I mean, he never walked in. The seat next to my mom stayed empty the entire night, like someone bolted it down and carved his name into the cushion. It was right there at the front, second from the aisle, where every single person could see it. My father's chair. My name's Nolan Price. I'm 32 years old, live just outside Denver now, but I grew up near Milwaukee. And yeah, I used to be the kid who believed if I worked hard enough, someday he'd show up. Before we start, share in the comments, how's your day going, and where are you joining from? And let's continue. I kept checking my phone all morning like a fool, even while I was getting dressed. Touched it probably a dozen times, like maybe that would make a text come in. Nothing. Just silence. Then 10 minutes before the ceremony, St. Paul, hotel ballroom, white lilies, the whole thing, my screen lit up. A message from his assistant's number, not even his. Can't make it. Meeting ran over. I read it twice. Didn't even have the guts to put a period at the end. I stood at the altar alone. People murmured like maybe it was some modern thing, some personal choice. But my hands were shaking and my eyes locked on that chair like it owed me something. Kara, my wife now, she squeezed my fingers and whispered, "Nolan, you don't have to fake it." I nodded so I wouldn't fall apart in front of her whole family. After the reception, I sat on the balcony with my tie half off and told myself I was done chasing his shadow. Gerald Price wasn't going to be the voice in my head anymore. Growing up, he moved through our house like a cold front in a suit, sharp, silent, and somehow everything still revolved around him. Mom, Marla, always covered for him. She'd say, "Your father's under pressure," like that excuse the missed birthdays, the missed spelling bees, the time I hit my first home run, and he didn't even ask how the game went. My brother Trevor? Oh, he was the golden child. Star athlete, corporate charm, perfect handshake. I sat in the corner at client dinners, holding job flyers I never showed anyone. One night when I was 13, I asked Dad why he never showed up. He didn't even glance up from his laptop, just muttered, "I'm building your future. Be grateful." I told myself I'd earn my way into his line of sight someday. But on my wedding night, staring at that empty chair, I knew if I ever wanted to matter, I had to build something he couldn't ignore. So I got started. I didn't wait long. The Monday after the wedding, we flew back to Denver on Sunday night. On Monday, I drove about an hour north with a backpack, a laptop, and the kind of pressure you can't shake off. There was a foreclosed motor lodge outside Fort Collins I'd been watching for months. Faded blue shutters, cracked ice machine, no working website, and a dying sign that blinked vacancy like it was begging for mercy. It smelled like mildew and old hash browns. I walked it with a real estate broker who talked more about tax loss harvesting than the actual building. The credit union officer looked me over like I was holding monopoly money. "You sure about this, Nolan?" he said, tapping the loan papers. "You're betting your whole name on a property nobody wants." "Exactly," I told him, and I signed because if I backed out, it meant I was still scared of not being enough. I started with 5 rooms open. I painted until my wrists cramped. I scrubbed under toilets and changed locks myself. When one room got broken into during a snowstorm, the budget was so tight I bought coffee filters in bulk and used a beach towel as a curtain in the first unit I rented out. Most nights, I slept on a folded blanket behind the desk. In December of year 1, an ice storm knocked out the main line. Half the place went black. I lit candles, brewed instant coffee on a camping stove, and walked guests to their rooms one by one with a flashlight. Didn't charge them a dime. One guy asked if I was the owner. I said, "No, I'm the one who thought this place could matter." He tipped me a 20 and said it already did. The laundry room became my hiding spot. Pipes knocked loud enough to drown out the sound when I cracked. One night, I sat on a milk crate and let it all come out. Fear, exhaustion, rage. Then I stood up, cleared a clog the size of a raccoon, and kept moving. By year 3, I had regulars, contractors, traveling nurses, a retired teacher who stayed once a month just to get out of Denver. Weekends were waitlisted. By year 5, I opened a second site. A-frame cabins tucked near Buena Vista, clean and quiet, just trees, silence, and a bed that didn't sag. I didn't run ads that made promises. I just gave people peace, and they brought friends. Eventually, I bought lakeside units near Hayward. Didn't overbuild. No marble, no fake charm. Just clean linens, soft light, real coffee. Word spread without me begging. Investors started calling. One wanted to rebrand me with some mountain-themed buzzword. I passed. A couple outlets did interviews. I said yes only when they treated me like a businessman, not some underdog novelty. Through all of it, every guest, every contractor, every profit milestone, my dad said nothing. Not a text, not a good work, son. Same cold silence I'd grown up with. But I slept on better sheets now, and the only approval I needed came from the guy shaving in my mirror every morning. That morning, the office smelled like burnt coffee and printer toner. Normal, quiet, until Rita came in holding a single sheet of paper like it was radioactive. She shut the door behind her, didn't sit. "Valuation came through," she said, breathing fast. $612 million. I didn't say a word, didn't fist pump, didn't whoop, nothing. I just sat there staring at her, hearing a chair creak in my memory. That chair next to my mom at the wedding, still empty, but for once, not painful, just factual. The next hour exploded. My phone lit up like it owed somebody rent. Partners, local press, a hospitality blog I didn't even know had my number. They all wanted a quote, a statement, a photo. The company inbox filled so fast it stalled twice. By the time it calmed down, my throat was dry and my ears were ringing like I'd just walked out of a concert. I stood by the window, watching snow swirl hard sideways down 17th Street. And then came the next buzz. Vibration only, but it hit me right in the gut. The contact just said, GP. I hadn't seen that in almost 3 years. The message, family dinner, 6:30 in the evening. Important. That was it. No, congratulations, son. No, proud of you. Just a blunt summons, like I'd missed some weekly check-in. The time was for Friday night, 24 hours away, like I needed a day to remember who I was dealing with. Kara walked in with 2 coffees, handed me mine, and paused when she saw my face. I turned the screen toward her. She read the message and her jaw locked like a door clicking shut. He ignored you when you hit 10 million, at 50, at 200, but now? She shook her head. Now you're interesting. I'm going, I said. Not for him, for me. She didn't argue, but she didn't hide the look either. You don't owe him closure. Good, I said, grabbing my coat, because I'm not handing it over. Rita followed me inside like she'd been rehearsing the walk for an hour. She didn't take off her coat, just slapped the envelope on the kitchen table like a final notice. You need to see this before dinner, she said. I flipped it open and started sorting. Lender notices first, then the liens, then the IRS letters. Names I recognized from headlines and nameplates on glass towers. Every page stank of fire sales and late-night promises that didn't clear. There were hotels, strip malls, parking decks, scattered across Illinois, Minnesota, and Colorado. Most had balloon payments already defaulted. At least 5 had pending litigation over unpaid subcontractors. Some hadn't had property taxes paid in over 18 months. My throat went dry. He's circling the drain. No, Rita said. He's under it. I sat down hard, hands on my knees, just breathing. That text from him made perfect sense now. It was never about reconnecting. It was survival math. He didn't remember he had a son. He remembered he had someone with a war chest. His lenders want out, she said, and they'll sell the notes as a distressed bundle. They're talking under 60 cents on the dollar. I stared at the page in front of me. Face value, $227 million. The notes weren't worthless. The assets had bones. They just had Gerald Price's name stuck to them, like old duct tape. I looked up. Can we execute? We've got a revolving warehouse facility ready to deploy, Rita said, flipping open her tablet. Legal's got the omnibus assignment form prepped. KYC is current. We're clean on AML flags. It's ready. I thought about that broken chair leg Kara had fixed in this very kitchen years ago. How she spent an hour with wood glue and clamps just because Mom didn't want to throw it away. That chair still held weight. I wasn't sure my dad ever did. Buy it, I said, barely recognizing my own voice. Rita blinked. All of it? Every note, I said. Lock it down before he shops it somewhere else. This isn't just debt, Nolan, she said. It's control. Exactly. I'm not here to bail him out. I'm here to end the part where I still play second chair at his table. We worked until almost midnight. I took calls from New York, Toronto, and San Diego. Rita handled the lenders. Legal ran hot, redlining the assignment, clearing compliance blocks, checking lien positions. We drank black coffee that tasted like battery acid and shoved granola bars in our mouths between calls. At 11:40 at night, the lead servicer confirmed. They'd aggregate the notes into a single assignment and hold consent in escrow for 48 hours. Closing could happen within 72. At $227 million face value, Rita said, rubbing her temple, this gives you operational control across all sites. I nodded and signed the initial intent sheet. My hands didn't shake. I'm not buying revenge, I said. She raised an eyebrow. Could have fooled me. I looked down at the page. I'm buying my last word. By sunrise, my inbox was lighting up. One by one, e-signatures started coming through. Regional lenders, a holding company out of Chicago, even a hedge fund in Phoenix I didn't expect to budge. By 10 in the morning, Rita texted, all in. And by lunch, the master assignment under the omnibus agreement was finalized. Funds released, counterparties paid through escrow. Done, no bang, no crowd. Just a long exhale, like the pressure system of my entire life finally shifted. I expected adrenaline, but what I got was stillness, not the numb kind, real stillness. Like I finally stepped out of the noise and sat down in a chair that fit me. I pulled on a navy sport coat I never wore because it reminded me too much of the guys who used to laugh through my father's fundraisers. The shirt was plain white, no monogram, no flash. I polished my boots slow, no speech, no posturing, just clean. Kara leaned in the doorway while I buttoned my cuffs. You're nervous you still care, she said. Not judgment, just fact. I paused, shrugged once. Pretending I don't never helped me. She walked up, fixed a wrinkle in my collar. Caring didn't make you weak. Letting him decide your worth did. I slid the assignment packet into a leather folder. The weight of it felt different than I expected. Less about muscle, more about authority. The drive up to Minneapolis was quiet. No music, just wind noise and tires chewing up the interstate. The steakhouse was downtown, same place Gerald used to take out-of-town board members to show them he was a man with reach. I thought about how many times I heard, "Don't overcomplicate it, Nolan. You're not cut out for the big table." Every time he said it, something inside me cracked like old plastic. That voice was quieter now, but it still echoed when the engine went quiet at red lights. Near the parking garage, my phone buzzed. A message from my mom. Please be kind to your father. He's dealing with a lot. That seatbelt-tight feeling snapped across my chest. She meant well, always did, but it still landed like she was trying to spread the guilt thin enough so we'd all get a piece. I flipped the phone over, face down on the console. The cold hit hard when I stepped out of the truck. Minnesota wind, clean and punishing. I zipped my coat halfway, but left it open enough for the shirt and folder to show. I wasn't a guest anymore. I wasn't a boy outside the den door with perfect grades and nothing to show for it. Tonight, I wasn't walking into a test. I was walking into a room that didn't control me anymore. The private room smelled like wood polish and steak grease. A bottle of overpriced Cabernet was already open on the table, glasses half filled like they were pretending it was still business as usual. Dad, Mom, Trevor, and Uncle Ray turned as I walked in. You're late, Dad said, leaning back in his chair like I worked for him, and he was about to write me up. No, I'm right on time, I said, closing the door behind me. The click echoed louder than I expected. Mom's fingers flinched in her lap. Sit, Dad said. We have things to discuss. Trevor jumped in fast, like he'd practiced it on the drive over. Look, this doesn't need to get messy. Dad's business hit a rough patch, and you're in a position to help the family. That's all this is. Dad tilted his glass, smooth as ever. Your valuation speaks for itself. We wouldn't be here if you hadn't made it. So, this dinner's about money, I said, sliding the chair back, but not sitting yet. Mom tried to smile, like politeness might soften everything. We just thought, if we came together, maybe we could. Stabilize the assets, Dad finished for her. We've crunched the numbers. With a short-term bridge loan, we can hold off the most aggressive parties. With a little time, we can... I unzipped my folder and pulled out the documents. You mean the properties you haven't paid crews on for months? The ones already in covenant breach? Notes in default, DSCR through the floor, LTV upside down, UCC notices stacking up, and a fire sale deadline next Tuesday. Dad stiffened, wine glass still in hand. Where did you get those numbers? I laid the papers in front of him, slow enough for the tension to stretch. They're not projections. They're yours. Trevor grabbed the packet, flipped a few pages, and went pale. Dad, this is an assignment, he said. It's addressed to Nolan's company. I bought the debt, I said. Every note, every lien, every property tied to your name. This isn't a rescue. This is a transfer of control. Dad's hands flattened on the table. How dare you come in here and you're taking what's his, Trevor snapped. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I didn't take it. He lost it. I just showed up first. Uncle Ray kept his eyes on his water glass, like it might offer him a script. No one moved. He built everything we have, Trevor said, louder now, and you're just trying to wipe it out like it doesn't matter. No, I said. I built something while he watched from a boardroom and said nothing. Not when I started, not when I struggled, not even when I got married. He skipped the vows. He skipped me, Mom's voice cracked. Your father's drowning in obligations. And he still made a choice not to show up, I said. Being overwhelmed is one thing, but silence? That's a choice. Dad's voice turned cold. You owe this family. Something in me locked into place. I owe you nothing. The table jumped slightly when my palm hit the linen. I pulled out one more envelope, sealed and signed. You have 28 days to vacate the offices and surrender operational control. After that, my team takes over. Assets, books, everything. Mom's face crumpled. Uncle Ray cleared his throat. Trevor muttered something about betrayal. And Dad? He just stared, jaw locked, like he was watching the future turn a corner without him. You're no son of mine, he said low. I stood up. Good, I said. Now we're finally being honest. The door clicked shut behind me, and the wind hit like it had a score to settle. Cut straight through my coat, sharp and fast, but I didn't flinch. I felt lighter than I had in years, like I'd finally dropped something I'd been dragging since I was 13 and asking a man why he never came to my games. Through the frosted glass, I could still hear voices, Dad barking orders, Mom crying, Trevor half-whispering legal questions he didn't understand, but none of it reached me. The door might as well have been a wall. Kara sat in the passenger seat with the heater going full blast, soft music playing low. When I opened the driver's side, she turned the volume down and reached for my hand. She didn't ask what happened, just looked at me like she was taking inventory. You all right? She said. I watched the line of headlights roll past on the wet street, every car going somewhere else, nowhere near the mess I'd just walked out of. I thought it would wreck me, I said, but it didn't. It felt like stepping out of a locked room I didn't realize I had the key to. At home, I dropped the leather folder on the kitchen counter and stared at it. A few months ago, it would have looked like a bomb, debt, leverage, obligations stacked and coded. Now it looked like freedom printed on cardstock. The next morning, my phone rang at exactly 9:14. Rita. Transitions posted and acknowledged, she said. You're officially in control. I leaned against the fridge, eyes closed, just letting it land. Thank you, I told her. Not just for the work, for the destination. That week moved like a downhill sprint. I met with site managers who looked surprised. I shook hands and asked about their teams. We brought in forensic accountants to start the cleanup. Spreadsheets flew back and forth. One office had a poster of Gerald on the wall. We took it down, didn't even frame a replacement. Every sign that had Price Group printed in bold came down. I didn't put my name up in its place. Not yet. Sleep hit hard and honest. No tight gut, no buzzing mind. I'd forgotten what it felt like to wake up without feeling already behind. One night, Kara walked past the bedroom door, saw me asleep on top of the comforter, with papers on my chest, and just smiled. You're not twitching anymore, she said. I smiled back. Guess I was running longer than I thought. It wasn't some big win with cheering and champagne. It was the first real quiet I'd had in years. And I wasn't scared of it. That was the part that surprised me most. I didn't tour the properties in a suit. I wore boots, jeans, and brought a crew that knew what water damage smelled like under fresh paint. No entourage, no fake nodding. Just folks who could walk into a moldy corridor and picture light coming through a skylight that didn't exist yet. Some sites had rot behind the drywall. Some had vendors who hadn't been paid in over a year. Gerald treated spaces like math, square footage, leverage, margin. I saw them differently. I saw rooms where people could breathe again, places with silence that didn't feel empty. We gutted a washed-out conference hotel near Rockford and turned it into a wellness retreat. Reclaimed wood, low lighting, walking paths carved into a birch stand out back. No billboard, just word of mouth. It booked out within 6 weeks. That crumbling tower off Highway 52? We stripped it bare, put in clean lines, soft tones, a lobby where you could hear yourself think. Took out the televisions that blasted cable news 24/7 and replaced them with shelves of books people could actually touch. At every site, I asked to meet the crews Gerald had stiffed. Most were bitter but polite. One guy threw a wrench into a dumpster when he saw me walk up. I didn't flinch. We paid every invoice still standing. Not because we were trying to make headlines, but because I wasn't going to build anything on excuses. That was his playbook, not mine. We renegotiated vendor contracts, real timelines, no vague language, no kicking the can to the second quarter. We reinstated warranties where possible and made it right where we couldn't. When the architects came in with concepts, I asked one question every time. Would you want your best friend staying here after the worst year of his life? If the answer wasn't yes, the blueprint got redlined. Somewhere in the middle of it, I caught my reflection in the glass door of a site trailer. I didn't see the kid who used to wait outside Gerald's office hoping to be invited in. I saw a man with gray streaks at the temples, steel in his posture, and nothing left to prove. Mom left 2 voicemails, both full of tears. Neither had the word sorry in them. Trevor posted some quote about betrayal and loyalty on his social feed. It got maybe 8 likes. I didn't respond. Dad stayed silent. Pride makes a lot of noise when it's cornered. He didn't have to say a word. I could hear the roar in what he didn't send, but for once, none of it dragged me back. Their noise sat in the distance like static from a radio in another room, the kind you forget to turn off but eventually stop hearing. The rebuild wasn't revenge. It wasn't even closure. It was the first thing I'd ever done completely on my own terms. They all thought the number was the destination. 612 million, they'd say, like it was a spell that should have fixed everything. I stopped correcting people. It's faster to nod than explain that nothing in my chest changed when those digits hit the screen. What changed was walking out of that steakhouse and not looking back. Friends asked if I was ever going to reconcile. I said I wasn't chasing a man who only knew my name when it was stapled to a balance sheet. That wasn't love. That was math. One of Dad's lawyers called 2 weeks later, real polite, asking what flexibility we had around the transition timeline. We had none. I told Rita to handle it, and she did. Tight, clean, and unshakable. Every document held. Every deadline met. No loopholes left open. She moved like a pro, resetting vendor terms, securing payroll continuity, making sure the site managers didn't flinch when the signs changed. I didn't micromanage. I stayed focused on the buildings, on the teams, on the guests walking through the doors of something better. Kara kept showing up when I didn't ask her to. She'd meet me on site with a thermos of soup, sit on overturned crates while contractors ran cables overhead, and just talk. Paint swatches, tile samples, carpet threads. She made the chaos feel like progress. One afternoon, I stood in a hallway that still smelled like varnish, and I thought about that boy again, the one who used to sit outside Gerald's den door, holding his breath, waiting for permission to exist. I looked right at the spot where the drywall hadn't been painted yet and said out loud, "We're done waiting." Nobody heard it but me. That was enough. I kept thinking about boundaries. Not the ones people cross, but the ones you build so you don't get dragged backwards. People think boundaries are about walls. They're not. They're maps. And mine finally matched the road I was actually walking. I didn't need Dad to see me anymore. That need was gone. What I needed was to see what I could build in the space he used to take up. And that space? It was big. It was mine. I made a rule for myself that week and wrote it in my notebook. If love only shows up when you're useful, it's not love. If family only calls when they're drowning, you can throw a rope, but you don't have to jump in. The rule stuck, not out of spite, out of clarity, because this was never about revenge. This was about reclaiming the time I used to spend waiting on a man who had every chance to know me and still chose silence. Now, I chose me. A month after the handover, I stood in the lobby of our new flagship outside Madison. It used to smell like fryer grease and old socks. Now it smelled like fresh wood and cinnamon muffins from the cafe tucked in the back. Sunlight came through oak slats we installed ourselves, laying wide and soft across the floor we'd sanded down by hand. It was warm, clean, solid. You could hear spoons against mugs, not a single screen yelling at anyone. A couple sat by the fireplace tracing routes on a fold-out map, and a woman laughed into her phone without trying to perform for the room. No one rushed. That was the whole point. Kara walked up from the elevator wing and slipped her arm through mine. We stood there quiet, watching a little kid press his face against the front glass and fog up a circle with his breath. "Looks like a real beginning," she said, and I nodded. Not because I needed the line, but because it felt true. My phone was in my pocket. For once, it wasn't on fire. No dread, no buzz I had to brace for. It just sat there like a normal object, like it belonged to me, not the other way around. The 612 million number still flashed in other people's eyes when they looked at me. But in mine, it was the sound of that steakhouse door clicking shut that stayed lit. That's the one I kept. Mom's voicemails, Trevor's guilt-soaked quotes, Dad's empty silence, they were lobby noise. Not evil, not urgent. Just part of a station I didn't listen to anymore. People love to define a win as someone else losing. My win wasn't that. My win was finally refusing to beg a man who never knew me to hand me my own name. We built a place where people can breathe. Turns out, I built one of those inside me too. Outside, a delivery truck beeped as it backed into the lot. A guy in a green vest waved to the front desk. I stepped away from the wood trim and walked toward the door. Because no matter how clean the numbers look, the work still needs doing. That's the part I love. If you're looking for a single turning point, don't go digging through bank wires or paper trails. It wasn't the valuation or the properties or that folder I dropped on the steakhouse table. It was a hallway in my head, the one where I stopped waiting to be invited in and just opened the door. I didn't break a family, I drew a line, and walking it, that was worth more than 612 million, more than any chair he ever left empty, more than every year he spent pretending not to see me. I don't need him to show up anymore. I did. Quick thing, be honest. When family calls only in crisis, do you draw the line or dive in? Tap, hype to boost, please subscribe and like, and leave a comment.